Looking to pick up your very own custom sleeves? Well, look no further. Go to yourplaymat.com where you can choose to have your very own image on the back of sleeves, or you can choose from their amazing range of pre-designed artwork ready and waiting for you. Get them shipped directly to your door and use the affiliate link and discount code down below to get 10% off. What are you waiting for? Go and grab your custom sleeves from yourplaymat.com. What's up YouTube, Daryl here from Z4Games, and today I am bringing you an Amazements TrapTrix deck profile. Now, this is a deck I've been looking forward to building and putting together and playing for a long time. It's one of the few decks that I actually feel Amazements can work really well with on a fun level. And what I mean by that is, yes, we all know that they can work well with Eldritch, but you know, Eldritch are a bit ugh. Whereas TrapTrix can actually be quite fun because I think Sarah is such a good card, and just being able to abuse the administrator by activating traps is insanely cool, and it works really well. Got a lot of synergy going together for it. So I thought I'd take you through the profile, show you all of the ins and outs, and then if this video gets at least 50 likes, I'll do a test stand video for you as well to kind of show you everything it can do. I'll try and replicate a small combo at the end for you. I'll keep it very basic, just to kind of show you a nice little tech that I saw on Board Tour's video with using and abusing TrapTrix and being able to loop Atrax. And I've always said since day one that Atrax is still a very good card to put into the deck, and I still think it is a good one to be using and abusing in this. Not to mention the additions of the Administrator and of course the other Amazement traps really do help this deck out. So with all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into the profile. So we start off with, of course, triple Amazement Administrator. So this card is basically like a multi-faker. If you activate a trap card at any point, you can summon this card after resolution. It also has the effect that once per turn, not a quick effect, you can banish any number of Amazement traps from your graveyard, then target that many cards your opponent controls and destroys them. So it doesn't need to be Amazement traps with different names. So if you've got 3 of one, then you're still good to banish those and off you go. What makes him so insanely powerful is if your opponent normal or special summons a monster except during a damage step, you target one of those face-up monsters they control, equip an Amazement trap from your deck to that target. So what that ultimately leads or means is you're going to be playing 3 of the Amazement Horror House, which is basically like a nice little imperm in the sense it's going to negate the effects. And you also have the Kylo Coaster, so you can kind of deal with back row if you want to as well. Sorry, you get to add an Amazement monster. So there's a lot of things to kind of consider and to keep in mind, but ideally what you need to see is Administrator is going to be a 2600 body that during your opponent's turn is technically going to lead to an imperm, and then during your turn is going to have at least an Amazement trap in the graveyard to banish and pop. So that's just as a special summon off of the back of activating any trap, which of course your TrapTrix set up. Speaking of the TrapTrix, your main normal summon of the decks is My Mellow. I didn't go with the other Amazement card, purely because, again, it's a specific when this card is normal summoned. So the Kobika is a specific when it is normal summoned, you get to set an attraction trap directly from your deck, which is nice. And then quick effect, you can target one of your Amazement traps equipped to a monster and move it to another one, a face-up monster you control. So it kind of allows you to adapt the traps, but ultimately I want my normal summon to be My Mellow because that's going to set me one of my trap holes. And I've bumped the trap holes, so I'm playing 4 different versions, or well, 2 different versions, but 4 copies. And that's obviously going to help me lead me into further combos. I've then got Double Mantis. Again, Mantis is another cool starter because it lets you add a TrapTrix monster, which ultimately lets you get to your Scalio, which I still rate as probably one of the best TrapTrix, even though I'm only playing it at 1. I have considered putting it at 2 as well. But Mantis is very important because this is one of the starters that you kind of get to the board, and then as long as between her and Atrax, the way this works is you're going to use Mantis' effect to bounce the trap that you've reset off of the Link 2, and then because you've got Atrax on the board, you can then activate it from hand, which is very nice synergy. We've then got 2 Dioneer for like recursion plays. So Dioneer is when it's normal, you basically get to target TrapTrix in your graveyard and special summon it. So that gives you instant rank 4 plays. It's just basically late game recursion. The one Atrax, again, kind of explain this one as well. You want to be special summoning this off of Sarah, and then that's where you're then able to use the effects of Mantis, and you're able to loop, whether it be Gravedigger or Floodgate, a couple of times. Keeping in mind as well that with Gravedigger, it's going to burn your opponent for 2,000 every time. So you're going to already activate the Gravedigger to put it into the graveyard to reset it. So they're already going to be burnt for 2k. Then if you're going to use Mantis effect to bounce back the Gravedigger, that's when you're going to trigger Sarah to special summon the Atrax. Then you have the ability to activate the Gravedigger from your hand directly, and that's going to burn your opponent for another 2,000 life points, which is really going to put them in a sticky situation. For the final TrapTrix monster, of course, we've got the one for Scalio. This card, I still think this is really, really cool, but you get to basically send a trap card you control to the graveyard and special summon this card from the hand. If you control no cards in your spend trap card zone, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target a whole normal trap card and set it to your field. So, like, part of a combo of this one is you can normal summon Marmello, and Marmello will then set you a trap hole card. Then you can turn Marmello into Serra. You can then use the Scalio effect to send the trap hole card to the graveyard to summon itself down. That will then trigger Serra's effect to then let you set another trap hole from your deck. So that will then let you set the Gravediggers or the Floodgate, whichever one you haven't chosen to use. Then what you have the ability to do there is, because you've been able to special summon for Scalio, you can then link into a link 2. By doing so, what that will allow you to do is then banish her to get you the other trap hole back. Now, keep in mind as well, if you do the Serra effect first, you're not going to be able to banish her from the graveyard. So there is a bit of give and take, but the idea is that by being able to special summon this to the board, you're triggering Serra on our own, and then if you can follow that up with a Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine, then you've got the ability to hold back on Serra's effect, activate the Shade Brigandine, make a rank 4, make a link 2 that you might need, and that's going to be able to kind of help you extend your plays a little bit further as well. We've got 2 parallel XEs. You can play it at free if you want. There's no real issues of playing it at free. The only real reason I didn't do that is because it can be kind of a brick, but at free you see it earlier. So it's a bit of a sacrifice, but it's up to you on the route you want to go. It's definitely more aggressive with XEs, but if you open up 2 of them in the same hand, it kind of sucks a little bit. So it depends on the route you want to go. XEs basically gives you a free Rafflesia, which is amazingly nice, no issues with that. So it just comes down to your personal playstyle and the route you want to go. For the spells, because we've only got play 4, I'll put them all in here. So we've got 2 Prosperity and 2 Amazement Time Ticket. I still think Time Ticket is incredibly powerful. Like, a lot of people don't like this card, and I can't understand why. But so Pot of Prosperity, if you don't have it, you've got stuff like Extrav. You could arguably put in stuff like Desires if you wanted to, because you are playing freeze of the majority of your cards, and I would probably then say you want to bump this up. But Prosperity is one of the better ones, purely because you get to control what you banish. So anything you might not use throughout your combos or throughout your plays, you get rid of, which is absolutely fine. Now, the Time Ticket, basically you want to count this as, yes, it's going to count as another Administrator, and yes, you want to be using Administrator to ideally activate the trap cards. But if you don't have Administrator in play, you can still activate the Time Ticket. If you do it during your turn, you get the Administrator. Like, it doesn't matter if your opponent knows you've got an Administrator, because at the end of the day, if they normal summon a monster, you're going to activate that Floodgate trap hole. You're not going to stop that. If they activate a monster in hand, you're going to play Gravedigger. So you're going to be able to summon your Administrator with ease. So even if they know I've got one in hand or not, it's not going to stop them playing the game. They're not just going to go, okay, well, I'm worried you might play a Floodgate, so I'm going to pass. Because then you go, right, whatever, I'll just activate stuff like Shade Brigandine, Infinite Impermanence, Solemn Strike, anything else like that, and your opponent's still going to lose. So it'd just be foolish for them to hold that back for that reason. Obviously, during your opponent's turn, you get to set an attraction trap directly from your deck, and it can be activated that turn. So even if you don't get to Administrator, you still have another route to get into the Horror House, which is, of course, going to be an Imperm. So there's a lot of things to kind of consider and how you want to kind of do this one. And keep in mind as well that the Horror House can also be a Book of Moon. So you get a Book of Moon or you get an Imperm. It really depends on which route you want to go with that. So if it's you get to negate its effect until the end of the turn. If it's your opponent's monster it's equipped to, you get to change it to face down defense position. So, let me just confirm this, I believe. If your opponent normal special summons a monster, target one of those face up monsters equipped to it. So basically the Administrator will be a Book of Moon effect, whereas if you go with Time Ticket, you turn it into an Imperm. So, you know, you're getting best of both of us. I think it would be foolish not to run this. I've put it at 2 copies. I'm going to see how it's going to roll with 2 copies and if I feel like I need a third. But because my Administrator should be doing it, bringing the traps out more times than not, the Amazement Time Ticket is just there for consistency to get to Administrator and also consistency to get the traps that you need. Keep in mind as well that because that trap can be activated the turn it's set, you can also help trigger Serra. So again, that's where your synergy is coming from. Onto the traps. Triple Phantom Knight Shade Brigandine, of course. Normal summon a TrapTrix, turn it into Serra, activate your Shade Brigandine, special summon a TrapTrix on the deck, instant rank 4. Wham bam, thank you ma'am, all from like 2 cards. Infinite Impermanence, so we're not playing Veilers, which arguably you could do, but the way I see it is Imperm is better than Veiler massively in this deck because it is a normal trap. So if I activate this and I have a Administrator in my hand, activate Imperm, negate one of my opponent's monsters, summon down Administrator, and then I've got a quick effect Book of Moon. So straight away I've already stopped 2 of my opponent's cards, and that's already going to cause them issues. So Imperm, incredibly powerful and very, very useful. Then of course we've got triple Solemn Strike, just for those times. This, like, if you're not going first, you probably want to put in Judgments or something like that, but I still feel that Strike is such a good card that it really does protect you, so it gets rid of the special summons. The only issue you're going to have with Strike right now is if you're playing against Tri-Brigade, yes, you can strike their effects to build up, but you can't stop a hard-searched Rendezvous. And there's a lot of ways to chain block as well, so Strike becomes a little bit more difficult to kind of get a massive resolution from it. And it also becomes an issue when you take into account stuff like Drytrons as well, purely because they have the ability to play through so much that sometimes one strike isn't really enough to just end it there. So these are spots that you might want to consider changing in and out. I've got 2 Compulse. These should hands down be Torrential Tributes. The only reason I didn't go with Torrential Tributes is because A, I couldn't find them, but also B, it doesn't really protect my Administrator. So yes, it protects like your TrapTrix when they can't be destroyed by card effects or unaffected by trap cards, but Compulse is still a very, very nice card just to be able to go bounce, put that normal summon back to your hand, and then they're in a bit of trouble. So like if my opponent goes, fine, I'm going to normal summon Nerval, you go, fine, Compulse, get rid of it. Like Torrential, they'll still get the search off of it, whereas Compulse puts it back into the hand, they've already burnt out their normal summon, they're in a bit of trouble. So that's just an example on that one there. It also helps with the Drytrons in a sense, so activate a Drytron effect, tribute in a monster as cost, summon it down. Now Torrential would put it back into the graveyard, Compulse puts it back in the hand, so you're pretty much doing the exact same job anyway. I've then got 2 Ice Dragon Prisons. This is going to be obviously insane against Drytrons and insane against Tri-Brigade, because obviously the idea is that as soon as your opponent, if your opponent goes Fractal, sends the materials that they need to, and then normal summons or special summons out of Karaz, if you activate Ice Dragon Prison, not only are you banishing a material they might need in their graveyard to banish to get to their Link monster, but you're also then able to banish the monster that's on the board. Now you've got to keep in mind, you've got to make sure that they're the same types, and then when you consider Drytrons as well, so Drytrons, when they get the 2 Drytron monsters on the board, or when they tribute off a Drytron to put one of them on board, you can then activate that, get rid of their Mu Beta, get rid of the 2 components they need to make their Mu Beta, and it really does slow them down. It also gives you the ability that once they put Diviner of the Herald on the board, you can activate Ice Dragon Prison, target their Benten if they've already successfully summoned it, keep that in mind. If they haven't, then you target another one of their fairies, bring it back, banish that and the Diviner. Straight away they lose their Beatrice play, and they also lose their fairies in the graveyard that will be used for either. So very, very specific, but they do also help. And a card that this deck can really struggle against is something like Dragoon, so Ice Dragon Prison is your only out in the main deck to that. For the trap holes themselves, 2 Gravediggers and 2 Floodgates. These can pretty much be any ones you want, but I think these are the best ones right now. So Gravediggers, you're looking at stuff like in hand or grave, so Nibiru's, you've got your Nervals, you've got your Kits as well. So you've got Fractals that's activating in hand, you've got Karaz that's activating in hand, stuff as well like that. Floodgate, just book a moon in your opponent permanently. It's not so great against Drytron because they can still tribute them, but against stuff like Tri-Brigade, so if they normal summon down a Fractal, if they use their normal summon onto a Tri-Brigade monster, activate Floodgate, flip it face down, then they're then not going to be able to banish them from the graveyard to get a Link monster out, and they're also then not going to be able to get that monster off of the field into the graveyard to be used as banished material as well. And then finally, wrapping up, we've got the Amazement Trap, so Triple Horror House. So you target an Amazement monster you control or a face-up monster your opponent controls, equip this card to it, and then apply the following effects depending on whose monster it is. So if it's your monster, you target an effect monster your opponent controls and negate its effects. If it's your opponent's monster, you change it to face-down defense position. Now keep in mind, when you book a Moon monster with this card will fall off and go, so you do have to keep that in mind. But this is another way that if this is equipped to your card, and you're negating one of your opponent's card effects, you can, yes, this kind, until your monster leaves the field, this card is still a dead trap. But that's where the Scalio comes in, because the Scalio can send this, put it to the graveyard, summon herself for free, and then this dead card is no longer dead. We've then got the 1 Silo Coaster, purely because right now you target a spell and trap your opponent controls, send this card and that card to the graveyard, and obviously this needs to be equipped to one of your monsters. If it's equipped to your opponent's monster, you get to add an Amazement monster from your deck to your hand. So yes, it's kind of good in that sense, but
it's not really, like, stuff like Twin Twisters, Cosmic Cyclones, Lightning Storms are going to do the back row hate job a lot better than this. So it really does come down to if, like, you're going to be placing Mystic Mine. If you're able to activate this during your opponent's turn when they set the rendezvous, that's going to cause them an issue. But if you're unable to do that, then you're not going to be able to kind of fulfill what you need to do. So, and then finally, the Imperial Order, because you're playing 4 spells, and Imperial Order, apart from Tri Brigade right now, shuts down so many decks. So if you Imperial Order against Drytrons, they're not being able to Ritual Summon, they're not going to be able to get their Novas off, their Emergencies off, their Pots off, anything like that. You really do cut down their consistency massively. You drop this against Strikers, they're probably going to lose. You've also got to keep in mind that with Strikers, if they can't activate the spells, and then you're just there going, right, okay, negate Shizuku, or attempt to Book a Moon Ray, or attempt to Book a Moon Rose. If they normal summon Ray and you attempt to chain Floodgate, they then need to chain the Rose to get rid of it. So you're putting them in a very, very sticky situation and causing them a lot of issues because you're forcing them to use the effects. So then you're basically baiting them out with one trap, leading them into another trap, and they're stuck there like it is. Another card you could put in here if you wanted to is There Can Only Be One. It's very, very risky, but because you bounce between plants and insects, if played correctly, you shouldn't have an issue at all. Then onto the extra deck, of course, Triple Sarah. I've seen people, I've heard people talk about cutting this down to 2. Like, I considered it in the past, but on a very, very tight grind game, you will go through 3 of these. I do have 16 cards in the extra deck, and I'll explain why when we get to them as well. We've got the one Clulia. So, obviously, this is a little bit more difficult to get out and resolve, and it's a little bit slower than the rest, but the idea behind this is this just gives you the ability to automatically reset a trap. Now, if it automatically let you reset a TrapTrix trap, and then activate it that same turn, broken. But that's where, of course, the combo with Mantis comes in, because Mantis can then bounce it back to the hand, and that's where Atrax comes onto the board, because then it lets you activate it from the hand, good to go. So this is very good for your recursion plays, but you do have to go out of your way to try and make it. We've then got the one Anamirus. Anamirus again puts in work in this, because she is part of the combo that sometimes you'll have Shade Brigade and another one, so you can't actually make Kulia because it requires 2 insect or plant monsters. So you have to make Anamirus. Anamirus will detach 2 to bring a monster back, and then you use Anamirus plus that monster to make your Kulia, and that's how you start recycling your traps. Rafflesia, you know, we all know how good this card is, puts in a lot of work, gives you instant access. So even if you've already set a Floodgate, even if you've already set a Gravekeepers, she can then activate another Gravekeepers and another Floodgate. So this is what happens if you open up Parallel Xyz, is you get Rafflesia. So your turn, opening up Parallel Xyz, then becomes not only the combo, but also becomes a Rafflesia. So you're able to activate, for example, a Floodgate trap pile twice, because you activate it once, reset it with Kulia, bounce it with Mantis, and activate that. And then you've also got the ability of Rafflesia to then activate Gravediggers or anything like that. So again, you can activate Gravediggers with this, sending it to the graveyard, and I believe that allows you to use Cluria. I'm not too sure, but if it does, then you reset that and you get the best of both. Carrying on with the XYZs, so we've got Abyss Dweller. Now, the reason you would actually play Abyss Dweller is, again, Drytrons shuts them down completely, but on top of that as well, Dweller will also help you slow down the Tri-Brigades. Yes, they can still banish them from the graveyard, but it does stop them getting their recursion off of Shurag. Because they activate Shurag or activate the Revolt, bring them all out, Shurag will then send all of the materials to the graveyard. So if they're then trying to recur their resources off of Kit, trying to recur their resources off of Nerval, you shut them down completely, and shutting down Nerval really does hurt their consistency. The other option with Abyss Dweller is, of course, Redoer, purely because you can make Redoer or consistently make Redoer with a monster and a trap, meaning that you do get that additional bounce. So if you don't get the combo to go with the Anamirus, you can then go into Redoer, and Redoer is going to give you that free bounce plus steal a card from the top of your opponent's deck, which can be a blessing and a curse, because if it's something like a Nerval or like a Tri-Brigade that you're putting back into the grave, or a Drytron, it's not great. Then, of course, we've got a very small zoo package of Borbo and Shukanine. So obviously the idea behind this is you make Shukanine as your rank 4, and this is purely if your opponent has built up a board that you just want to send away with Zeus. So you would go 2 level 4s, Shukanine, and then go into Borbo. Borbo attacks directly for 0, keep that in mind, but he has been able to attack directly. Then what that allows you to do is go into a Zeus after that, and Zeus will then have 4 materials, which means Zeus can be used twice. Now this obviously gives you the ability to send the board twice. It's all going to be good if you don't then set your entire back row. So for example, if you went normal summon with Melio, set a trap hole, activate for Scalio, send the trap hole to the graveyard to summon it. overlay those two into Borbo, Chuck and Iron, then Borbo, attack directly, then make Zeus, then you're absolutely good to go and you're golden. Now, obviously, if you then make Zeus detach 2 materials and make sure one of them's the Scalio, you'll have no spell and traps along the back row. So then you banish the Scalio. After you've cleared your opponent's board, you banish the Scalio, you set the floodgate back, and then you pass your turn. So you've still got a send-off of Zeus, and you still have the trap card. And all you've used from that combo is technically 2 cards, which is your Marmello and then you have the Scalio. And then after any of that, you still have the ability to make Sarahs. If you've got additional extensions, you can go through that route. If you want to set more back row, you can. The only issue with setting more back row is it means you have to use all of that back row before you use Zeus, because obviously if you use Zeus, you're going to lose it and you're going to neg. So you need to be very careful on that one. For the Link monsters, of course, you've got the 1 Link Spider, just so you turn the Shade Brigandine into Link Spider. And when you've got cards like Access Code that need effect monsters, you need to be going from that. And on top of that as well, you're putting an Earth in the graveyard for your Access Code. Phoenix, Unicorn, quite self-explanatory there. And then you've got your defensive Appaloosa, but arguably I don't think you're ever going to make this. You could probably cut this out quite easily. And that's where you can put in Redoer and Dweller. And then finally, your boss monster is Access Code. So you've got a couple of boss monsters here. You've got your Zeus and your Access Code. So you've got your Link Climb route, you've also got your XYZ route. Now, if you don't have either of these, your replacements for this would be Utopia Double, Utopia the Lightning, and Utopia in general. So they're your 3 zones there, taking up that space, and you put double or nothing in the extra deck. In the main deck. Instead of Access Code, instead of Appaloosa, if you have access to them, you can go Verte Dragoon. If you don't, then of course, and you have got Zeus, again, Utopia the double. If you don't have either of these, you take out Access Code, you can still go into Borrelsword. Borrelsword will still get the job done. It's just a little bit more difficult to build up to and make, because you do need 3+ monsters rather than just 2, but you still have routes to get to it. It still gives you that boss monster that will get the job done on a cheaper scale. So don't look at this and go, oh, I must have Prosperities, or I must have Zeus, or I must have Access Code to do that or play this deck. No, that's not the case. You can still play this deck without these cards. These are just, if you want to be going all out, maximum, balls to the walls level, these are the ones you want to be going for. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is that for the deck profile. I hope you like this. I hope it's given you a couple of ideas for your own personal build. There's definitely a couple of little tips and tricks and tweaks that I'd want to make with this deck, and kind of help go a little bit further forward. Okay, so now the very, very simple 2-card combo. It can be any TrapTrix monster at all. Obviously, my Melio is going to get you that little bit further forward, and then you need Shade Brigandine specifically. So what we're going to do here is we're going to normal summon our Melio. We're going to trigger her effect, and that is going to let you set a trap directly from your deck, specifically being a trap hole card. So that is going to let you set, let's go with Grave Digger's trap hole. Doesn't really matter because you're going to get the other one as well as you go through the combo. Then what you want to do here is, of course, you want to be linking away your Marmello, and that's going to go into your Sarah. Then what you're going to do is you're going to trigger your Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine, so you can have no traps in the graveyard, which will then trigger Sarah to special summon a TrapTrix from the deck. Now, keep in mind on this one, if you opened up Mantis as your starter, then you can special summon any TrapTrix out you want. If you didn't, then you want to be special summoning out Mantis. She is the one that is going to help you loop your trap hole cards. You're then going to overlay these two because they are rank 4s, or technically 2-level 4s, to make, of course, your TrapTrix Anamirus. There we go. Now you're going to have Marmello in the graveyard already, so you're going to use the effect of Anamirus, detaching 2 materials to bring back a TrapTrix, which can be anyone you want. They're going to be used as link material anyway. That will then trigger the Anamirus effect. Sorry, not Anamirus effect, Sarah's effect to set you a trap hole. So you're going to set Floodgate or Gravediggers, whichever one you don't have. Or if you want to double up on the Gravediggers, by all means double up the Gravediggers, which means you can technically burn your opponent for like 6k, which is crazy. Then what you're going to do is you're going to link the Marmello and the Anamirus together, and you're going to go into your Caleria. Move those out of the way. And then you're going to pass there. So in your end phase, Caleria's effect is going to go off to let you special summon back one of your TrapTrix in the graveyard, and this one you specifically want it to be Mantis. So then what you're going to do here, ignore this trap card because this is the one set off from Marmello, but this is the base minimum you're going to have with any TrapTrix monster and Bardi-ish. So not Bardi, sorry, Shade Brigandine. So then what you're going to do is you're going to activate your Floodgate trap hole to book them in one of your opponent's monsters. That will then allow Cluria to reset this rather than sending it to the graveyard. Now, that will trigger Sarah because you've activated a trap card to special summon a TrapTrix from the deck, and you want to special summon Atrax, because Atrax will specifically allow you to activate trap hole cards from your hand. So then what you do off the back of this is you activate Mantis. Mantis will then target the Floodgate trap hole to return this back to your hand, and that will trigger Sarah to set either a Gravedigger or another Floodgate. Then you've added this back to hand. Now, you can activate it from the hand because of your Atrax. So you can activate this from your hand, not trigger an Atrax's effect, because it's not an activated effect, it just lets you do it to Book of Moon another one of your opponent's monsters. So you've ended up using Floodgate twice, and then during the end phase, Claria is going to resolve to bring back your Marmello, or you could bring back the Anamirus if you want to. Now, this is if your opponent hasn't been able to play through the Gravediggers that's been set off of Marmello. Also, the double loop of whether it be another Gravediggers or whether it be another Floodgate. So you've ended up dealing with your opponent's 2 monsters as well. You still have 3 more cards in your hand to play with, so just imagine if one of those cards was an Administrator. Because then at any point, whether it be through the Shade Brigandine or whether it even be through activating the Gravediggers or anything like that, you can special summon down the Administrator, and that's going to allow you to give another Book of Moon by being able to equip it with the Horror House to your opponent's monster and Book of Moon it. Or you can equip it with the Kylo Coaster and deal with Backrow, or add a Administrator for the next turn, so that if they activate anything, you can activate the Floodgate and go again. So you've got so much build-up play, and this all comes from an additional card in your hand. That could even be an Amazement time ticket, and then if not, you've still got all of this board that you're going to be able to build and abuse just by using 2 very simple cards in the combo. Anyway, I hope this has helped. I hope this combo has kind of given you a bit more description and a bit more understanding of what the deck can do. I thoroughly enjoy TrapTrix. I think they're a very cool, fun deck. And being able to add the Amazements to it as well. Also, it allows you to take it to another interesting level. Because what it allows them to do is it gives them a main deck boss monster. But a main deck boss monster that can lead to destroying cards on the board. And of course, Book of Moon, Imperm, or of course, Backrow Hate or Search ability. So, that is everything. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said at the start of the video, if this video gets at least 50 likes, I will bring you a full test hand video with the deck as well. As absolutely always, guys, stay safe and happy dueling.
Looking to pick up your very own custom sleeves? Well, look no further. Go to Yourplaymat.com, where you can choose to have your very own image on the back of sleeves, or you can choose from their amazing range of pre-designed artwork ready and waiting for you. Get them shipped directly to your door and use the affiliate link and discount code down below to get 10% off. What are you waiting for? Go and grab your custom sleeves from Yourplaymat.com.